Hi everybody. Hi, we're live, Facebook Live. I've just started the video a couple of minutes, or the session should I say, a couple of minutes early just to allow people to join and settle down, and also to allow me to settle down. And I just wanted to say a couple of things before we actually start and get into the content of the session. I wanted to say a special hello to two people. Hello Ria Taylor, and also hello Salman Hussein, who is Imtiaz Hussein's son, who is the admin for the 11 plus group in Birmingham. So hi you guys. If you missed the start of this, don't worry, there will be a recording put up in the group afterwards. If you hear sort of things like this, it's not me practicing my card trick. It's me shuffling my notes, and I have to make notes. I have to have them on cards, and I will be looking at them because there's a lot going on here. Hi Navara. Hi Nikem. Hi Amy. Hi guys. Yeah, so my eyes will be up and down and around. So excuse that because I'll be looking at my notes. Also, just on the other side of this door, I've got my two dogs, my two border terriers, Eric and Blossom. I've told them not to bark, but they don't always listen, and they do bark when people knock on the door, so apologies for that now. Also, this afternoon when I did my run-through session, my internet connection went down, so I had the thing whirring telling me I'd lost the connection. Wasn't quite sure what to do, so I just kept going, and I couldn't see what it was like until playback, and it only disappeared for a little while. So if that happens again tonight, I'm going to just keep going, and hopefully I just won't disappear forever. That's the best thing I can do. And the other thing I noticed as well when I was doing my run through, I didn't smile very much. I get all serious. So I'm really sorry if I get my serious face on, and I'll give you another big smile now before I start. So hi. So I make that just after 8 now. Let's have a look. Just 8 o'clock. So I think we'll start. Agnes, are you on? I didn't see. Oh, hi, Richard. Hi, Kausa, how are you? Great, so we're going to start. Agnes, I can't see your name, but hopefully you're there. So I want to start by saying a huge thanks to Agnes O'Brien. She's the founder of this great group. I was excited when she asked me to do this, but I was also, and still am, really nervous. So if I'm gabbling, hopefully I'll settle down in a little while. Also wanted to say thank you to the other admins of the group, but a special kudos to Richard Gray of Crystal Tuition. Hi Richard, who went first. This is not as easy as it looks. And Sharon Deep Spall. Hi Sharon Deep, who went second. Also, we've got a couple of sessions to look forward to. We've got Victoria Adamesu, the tutoress. I think she's next Tuesday. And also we've got Teach It Right. It's Richard. Is it Richard Pierce? Sorry, Louise. I can't remember your husband's name. Forgive me. And yeah, he's going to be doing a session in a week or so. I'm not sure of the date. So Richard Gray is my wingman tonight, and he's probably going to answer the comments as they come in live. I will look down at them, but I probably won't get to them all tonight. And in the recording, I will answer every single one best I can. I'm not around tomorrow, so if I don't get to them straight away, then please forgive me. I'll get to them as soon as I can. So for those of you who know me, hi guys. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's S.L.Ager. I'm an 11 plus parent, just like I guess most of the people that are on the call tonight. I'm not a teacher and I'm not a tutor. Everything that I share with you tonight is just my experience of me and my children going through the 11 plus, and some of the things that I did with my children to help them where I felt they were struggling when it came to the vocabulary learning. And tutors and teachers, please feel free to correct me, to chime in, to help me, put your name in, put your comments in there. I'm always learning, and my motto is if I stop improving, I stop being good. So, you know, please help me along here. The session, the first part of the session is aimed more at parents, but kids, I am going to teach you something. I'll show you how to make something that you can use to test your parents on. Yes, yes, you heard that. You are going to test your parents. You're going to be the teacher. Because when you do that role reversal, it's a really good way for you to learn. And also, it helps your parents to understand just how hard it is to study for the 11 plus. So we'll be doing that in a little while. So I'm a parent, like I said, but I'm also the author of the 11 plus vocabulary novel, The Cadwallader Quest. I'm not going to plug the book loads because that is boring, but I will refer to it just because it was born out of me helping my children. So in the trailer I did for this, because a lot of people ask me how to pronounce this word, it's Cadwallader. Cadwallader is a surname. That's the Welsh version. There is an English version as well. So the book is about an ordinary schoolgirl, and she discovers that she's the niece of a 12th century knight. But the only difference here is that this knight is alive and kicking, and he needs her help. So that's the premise for the book. I'm not going to give too many spoilers, but it's got magic, mystery and martial arts and friends, family, and even some fighter jets and football. So hopefully there's something in there for everyone. Right, so down to the meat of the 11 plus stuff. So tonight's topic is the importance of establishing a wide vocabulary over time and why it's important once your child is at a grammar school. Now, again, I can't stress enough that everything I'm going to talk about tonight is from my perspective and my experience. So yours might be very different. So I'm going to address the first part of the topic first, because that's easy. So why is a wide vocabulary important once your child is at grammar school? So from my experience, when they're at a grammar school, they're taught at quite a robust pace. So my assumption is that the grammar school expects the children to have the wide vocabulary so they're all literally on the same page and they can all follow what they're being taught. And why do I feel that it's important to? It takes a long time to work. Now, guys, I'm just getting the trying to reconnect signal here on my computer, so I really hope you can still see me. I'm going to continue. I don't know if you can still see me. Can anybody put something in the comments there? Can you still see me, guys? Yeah. Can you see me? I'm just going to continue. It's saying that it's trying to reconnect, so hopefully you can still hear me. So why do I think it's important to establish a wide vocabulary over time? It's because it takes time to learn vocabulary. Now, if you haven't got the luxury of time, because oh great, okay, I'm glad you can see me. Can you hear me? Cambridge Academic Tuition, can you hear me? Right. Can you hear me though? Because you're all saying you can see me, but can you hear me? Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Agnes. So if you've not got the luxury of having time and you feel, and your child is sitting the 11 plus in September, don't panic. Keep working on the vocab. But if you are worried, try and make sure that your child's math skills and non-verbal reasoning skills are really up to scratch, because then you can be rest assured that they're hoovering up the marks where they're strongest. The other reason why I feel it's important over time, and I'm talking for my region regarding everything tonight, so my region is Berkshire, CEM. For your region, parents, to find out your marking scheme and how your marks are allocated, please check your school's website and the LEA, because you never know. Facebook is great, but you're never certain that it's completely up to date. I'm just checking to see if we're still okay. Yes, you can still hear me. Good, because I'm still seeing the trying to reconnect signal, which is really quite disconcerting. So check your website, check your LEA. So it was very important for my kids, because CEM in my area apportions 50% of the marks to the verbal reasoning, and that's ostensibly English. I know it's the same in Birmingham and Wirral, and I think even Box, which is GL, they're 50% of the marks as well. So, but check your own website. So, very briefly, my children. The other reason why vocab is really important is they go to highly selective schools, which just means that the schools are so oversubscribed that a pass mark was not enough for them to get in. And I know that's the same in a lot of areas as well. So it was really important for them to not just get a pass, but to get a high pass, which also takes away the worry of the waiting list, etc. So when I supported my children, they were so different. It was like having a cat and a dog. My daughter was an avid reader, and my son didn't like fiction and sadly still doesn't. At the time when my daughter was studying, Kendrick, her school, dropped the CEM bomb on us, and I only found out 6 months before. She was studying for GL. They changed the exam board, which is another reason, parents, why keep checking, because I don't know exactly how much notice Kendrick gave, but I found out 6 months before. So I had to switch from GL to CEM. And when I saw the resources, I had a shock. There weren't many resources around then, so we made our own flashcards to help. And I'm going to show you how I did those in a second, and also the system that we used. My son, he read Ripley's Believe It or Not, Guinness Book of Records, Tom Gates. As literary as he got was David Walliams. All those books are brilliant. I love them. And if some children will pass the 11 plus reading that material, I felt that my son wasn't exposed to the vocabulary that he needed. And just while we're here as well, reading is by far the best way to build up a vocabulary over time, because you're being exposed to the words over and over in different contexts. So I was worried about my son. We used the flashcards. We also used my blackboard, which Richard Gray, I think, has got a picture of, my infamous blackboard. I don't know if you can shove that picture up there, Richard. There's a lag on this, so I can't see what's happening. We used the blackboard, Scrabble, bananagrams, but it wasn't enough. And he wasn't a wordy kid, so he wasn't really into those games. He's out there now making a model, and that's what he prefers to do. So I'm going to talk about the book in a sec, because this is how the book was born. We started with sentences, and those sentences grew into paragraphs. He became my beta reader, so he would read and give me advice on the story and so on. So I'm going to refer to the book now briefly, because parents do ask me how best to use the book, and I will come on to that in a second. I'm going to try and get this in focus, and it's really for people who haven't seen the book before, and I'm sorry if it's not great. Look, my spatial awareness is awful. I can't even reverse that image. I would fail the 11 plus terribly. Okay, Richard, thanks. Post the pics after the end. That's great. Okay, so going to the book, the story is at the top of the page. People ask me how I decided on the vocab that I would define and include. That was all the words that I'd amassed throughout my experience of working with both the kids. So the story's at the top of the page. The relevant words are bolded. They've got a number by them and a correlating footnote at the bottom. I'm just going to try and bring that nearer with that shadow. Then the words here are bold. They're defined along with the parts of synonyms and antonyms. I'm going to read one sentence because I want to show you how the synonyms from the definitions here can be swapped back. Okay, yeah, right. I see. Thanks, Agnes. I see your message. Again, I'm hopeless at this. So I'm going to read one sentence, and this sentence is one of the teachers. He's one of the teachers speaking, and he's called Mr. Holly, and his first name's Walter, and he's actually a bit of a wally. So anyway, as Mr. Holly paused, Josh Strain inhaled a resoundingly noisy sniff, then let out the loudest, longest burp he could muster. And we're going to look at the word muster because it's a great word. So muster, I define it as a verb. It's defined as summon up, a response, attitude or feeling, and the synonyms are gather, collect, rally, raise and call on, and the antonym is disperse. I'm going to use the word call on and swap it over for the word muster here, so you can see how you can actually work on synonyms with the book. So as Mr. Holly paused, Josh Drain inhaled a resoundingly noisy sniff, then let out the loudest, longest burp he could call on. So that's just another way of using the vast resource that's in the book. But also, quite a few parents have asked me how best to read the book. And my answer to that is however suits your child. But if you've got the luxury of time, then perhaps read the book through first and enjoy the story. Ignore the definitions. There's a lot of definitions there, and I want to really stress it is not a to learn list. It's another tool in your toolbox, your armory to passing this 11 plus. And the synonyms, they are there just to help. So read it through, ignore the definitions, enjoy the story, and then maybe read it through again another time. And if you're stuck on the words, then start looking at the definitions, then start working on them. But don't spoil the story. There's also a Kindle version that's got interactive definitions. Talking about vocabulary over time as well, there is one point that I do want to make here. Just having a look. Yeah, okay, there is one point I want to make here about the overtime piece to the discussion. If your child's been taught well with maths and non-verbal reasoning, on the day they should be able to call on those techniques and face any of the maths problems that they're given. There are a few devices that you can use to trigger or maybe help you work out vocabulary, but it's harder. You can look at prefixes, suffixes, parts of speech, which I'll go into in depth in a little while. But if you don't know a word, you kind of sometimes don't know it. And when you're faced with the time pressure of the 11 plus, that makes it really even harder. So this is another reason why, if you've got the luxury of time, start early. And we do a word of the day in the group. You don't have to do a word every day, but even as young as year 3, you can do a word every few days. You can put it on the board. And what we used to do is we used to make sure that we brought that word into our daily discussions. The kids' eyes would roll, but we really found it helped. And sometimes we'd have a laugh about it, and even my husband would get involved. And he's not really the 11 plus person in the house, I am, although he did help with maths because I'm rubbish. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the flashcards now and show you how I made my flashcards. Has anybody made their own flashcards here? I'm sure there are. Yeah, there's a lag here, so I can't actually see if you're answering now. It'll be later. And there's, for the older parents watching tonight, there's something that I've always wanted to say here, and I'm going to say it now. We didn't have sticky back plastic in our house many years ago when I was a kid, because we didn't actually have the money. But here's my Blue Peter moment. Ta-da! Here's one I made earlier. Look, still can't get it right. That's switching things around. So here's one I made earlier. So ignore the traffic lights at the moment here. But can anybody tell me what this word means, gratitude? Can we pop it into the comments? And I have defined, and when I flip this over, I've defined this word in the context that it appears on page 80 of my book. And again, we're going to talk about context, because context is critical when you're reading. So can anybody tell me what this means? And can anybody tell me what word type it is? So which part of speech it falls under? I'm going to flip it round. So I hope you can see that, guys. So this word, gratitude, is a noun, and it's the quality of being thankful and showing appreciation. The synonym is thanks and gratefulness, and the antonym is ingratitude. Hi guys, I don't know if you can see me. We lost the video, I don't know why. Can you let me know if you can see me, guys? Can you give me a wave if you can see me? It's saying you can. Can anybody just let me know if they can see me? Hi, Richard. Has everybody got to rejoin? That's a real pain. We lost it halfway through. I'm not quite sure what to do now. I'm not quite sure whether to... can everybody see me? Brilliant. So I'm going to carry on where I left off, and I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happened. Nobody else is streaming in the house. So I'm going to carry on, and sorry that it's broken into two. So my daughter would make these flashcards. She really liked writing them out, and I'm going to talk about the traffic light scheme in a minute. And also her favourite thing was actually testing me on them, and we worked together, we tested each other. But we had a little system, and the system was we took a lowly freezer bag like this, and we put an empty card inside. And when we first made a card, obviously she would have a red traffic light on it if she didn't know it. We'd learn them, we'd write the date on the cards, we'd make about 5 or 6, and then we'd pop it back in the bag with the date on, leave it for a couple of days, and then revisit it. If she got better, she would get the amber, and we'd rinse and repeat until basically we both got green. And we used to take these everywhere with us, in the car. And what you can do now is, kids, record yourself saying them onto your mum or dad's phone, and then you can play it back through the car speakers. And also, you can even video yourself, and that's just another way of learning. I think if you only try and learn something in one way, you can't ascertain whether it's sunk in. When you use lots of different methods, it can really help. Right, I'm just going to look. Great, so everybody can see me and hear me. Sorry we lost the video before. So what I'm going to talk about now, and I'm going to refer back to the word gratitude because it's a noun. Does anybody know what parts of speech means? It's a grammatical term. Does anybody know? Can you see in the lag? It's so far behind that I can't really follow it. I hope Richard is following it. So, parts of speech. I looked up the definition, and you will know this once I kind of make it easier. Once I explain, sorry. Parts of speech. I looked it up on the internet to get a different definition. It was horrible, so I looked up the kids' definition, and that was much better. So I'm going to read that to you. So, kids' definition of parts of speech. And they are a class of words identified according to the kinds of ideas they express and the work they do in a sentence. Anybody any of the wiser? No, it still sounds quite complicated. Well, it's not actually. The English language has 8 parts of speech, and every word falls into one of these categories, but it's not that easy because there are kind of little different iterations and subcategories, but we're going to keep it really easy. And when I put this card up, you'll go, ah. And in our house, we don't use the correct terminology. We don't call it parts of speech. I just call it word types. So it's word types, okay? So, ta-da. So there's 4 parts of speech there. Those are the ones that we're going to talk about tonight. There are another 4. We're not going to talk about those because I don't think they're quite as relevant. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there's anything relevant to me, but my wingman Richard is doing a grand job. So the other 4 parts of speech are pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And I had to look at that, so otherwise I'd have forgotten. So we're going to talk about nouns first. There are roughly around 5 kind of nouns that we use a lot in English, but I'm going to talk about 3. Can anybody tell me what a common noun is? And put that down in the chat. A common noun is a concrete noun, and when I say concrete, I mean something we can touch. And context is important there. I'm not talking about concrete that we build a house with. So there's context in the word. So cat, dog, chair, computer, they're common nouns. Can anybody tell me what a proper noun is and how you can identify it? So a proper noun is a noun that it's something, describes something specific and always something important. So like your name would be a proper noun, so you'd use a capital letter, countries, places of towns, things like that. Then there is another noun that we're going to talk about, and that is an abstract noun. And the reason why I'm going to go into this a little bit deeper is a lady did actually put something on one of our group chats, I think, about saying that her daughter struggled a little bit to understand abstract nouns. And I completely understand, because they're not easy. So gratitude is an abstract noun, okay? And again, I looked up the definition on the internet, and I quite like this definition, actually. It was really good. So actually, I'm gonna go on to that in a second, because I've just missed out lowly adjectives, verbs and adverbs. How did I do that? So those are the three nouns that we're going to cover. And can anybody tell me what an adjective is and what it does? Okay, yeah, so an adjective, it modifies, which just means changes, or describes nouns and pronouns. Okay, verbs, they are doing words and a state of being word. I'm going through these quickly because we're going to go in a bit more in depth in a sec. And adverbs, they modify verbs, but they also modify adjectives and other adverbs. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. I just wanted to cover that before I moved on. So going back to abstract nouns. So the abstract noun gratitude, before I jumped the gun and got ahead of myself. So the kids definition, and I really like this. So kids, if you're not sure whether something is an abstract noun or not, remember this. So abstract nouns are words that name things that are not concrete. So going back to that context again, so anything that you can't touch. So your five physical senses cannot detect abstract nouns. So what that means is you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, hear it, or touch it. So in essence, it's a quality, so a quality that a person might have, a concept or an idea, or maybe even an event. So can anybody put some examples of abstract nouns in the chat for me? Yeah, we're on to abstract now. Okay. And I've got justice, beauty, success, friendship, love, hate, joy, and sorrow. So those are some examples of abstract nouns. Okay, so now, excuse me, I've had a cold. 1 second. I'm also just going to have a quick sip of my drink. Gin and tonic. No, it's not. Honestly, only joking. I promise it is sparkling water. 1 second. I hope that wasn't too noisy. Okay, so again, calling on my experience and what I did with my kids, and I'm not a teacher, I sort of devised a few little tricks and tips for them for identifying parts of speech, because I felt if they could quickly understand the word type, they were ahead of the game. And this little sort of device, if you can implement it early on, you don't need to be able to name all the grammatical terms. What you need to be able to do is be able to quickly recognise which part of speech a word is from. Oh, by the way, as well, I'm going to lose track of time now, because we're on the second video here. Oh, sorry, I'll try not to overrun. So going back to parts of speech, so these tricks, if you can implement them now and apply them to the work that you do now, it should become second nature. So tricks for identifying parts of speech, and I'm going to go through this quite quickly. So a noun. So to identify a noun, if you can put an indefinite or definite article in front of it, and this is, we're talking common nouns here really, not abstract nouns, because we've already talked about how to identify those, and we'll touch on it again. So a common noun, if you can put an indefinite or a definite article before it, chances are it's a common noun. So what do I mean by an indefinite article? So that's the word a or a or an. So a dog, a cat, an apple, an orange. The definite article and the English language only has one. Does anybody know what that definite article is? It's the word the. So if you can put the word the in front of a common noun, a word, then chances are it's a common noun. So proper noun, can anybody remember how we identify those? And this is great when you're doing shuffled sentences. Yeah, a proper noun has a capital letter. If you see a shuffled sentence that has 2 capital letters in it, chances are, well, it's one of them's a proper noun. So just make sure that you're starting the sentence with the correct word, which is capitalized. Okay, everybody can still hear me? Hope so, because I'm rattling on here. So abstract nouns, we've just talked about that. They can't be detected by your senses, so you can't see them, smell them, hear them. Okay, the 5 senses. I won't go over them again. So an adjective. Now this is a little bit trickier, but quite often when an adjective is modifying a noun, so when it's changing it or describing it, it often comes before the noun that it modifies, but not always. So we're only going to touch on the one that comes before because that's the most common. So what I mean is the black dog, the vicious dog, the tall man. So adjectives often come before the nouns. So those are nothing, it's not foolproof, nothing is with grammar. My grammar is far from foolproof, believe me, that's why I have an editor. But these are just tricks that I used with my kids. And I wanted to show you just a quick example of a word. And just to show you, this word spiral, I looked this up and it had so many parts of speech. This appears in my book on page 132. It's defined as a verb. But I want to just show you 3 examples of this as different parts of speech. So if you look at example 1, a spiral pattern. Spiral appears as an adjective. If you look at number 2, a spiral of smoke, spiral is a noun there. And if you look at number 3, a verb, it's a verb, a wisp of smoke spiraled upwards. So if kids can, I don't want kids to be sitting in the test thinking, oh, which part of speech is that, blah, blah, blah. What I want them to think and be aware of, because I think it really helps, is that a word is not just an adjective or a noun or a verb. It can appear in lots of different guises. I've no idea what the time is or how long I've been talking, but I am just going to quickly put this into practice. I'm not going to write anything out. Again, there's one I made earlier. I hope that you guys can see it okay. So this is a task that my son quite often struggled with. I'm just going to show you half the board. So I hope you can see that. And it's multiple meanings. And what you have to do is, if you look at number 1, the words that are not in brackets, I'd like you to pick out one word which is similar to all 4 in the brackets, okay? And try and quickly apply what we've just learned to finding the answer. So I'm not seeing any answers yet, just because of the lag, but I'm going to tell you what the answer is anyway. So the answer is aim. And if we look at point and direct, they are nouns, to point and to direct. So we're putting the to in front of it, which turns it into the infinitive of the verb. And to aim means to point and direct. And also, if we then change aim to a noun, we can say an aim, and we can say it means the same as a purpose and an intention. So that's how what we've learned comes into play here. Now the second one is a little bit trickier. Can anybody give me the answer to the second one? And this is trickier because another grammatical convention comes into play here. Has anybody got the answer there? Okay, and I'm actually gonna move to the side here. Yeah, a few of you have got it right. I'm going to move to the side and point to the answer, and I'll tell you why I'm going to point to the answer in a second. Okay, so I'll just try and do this and get this into shot. That way, that way, that way. And then closer, closer, closer. Okay, so the answer is that one. And the reason why I'm saying that one is because something else comes into play here. That word there is actually a heteronym, which is a type of homograph. And what that means is a heteronym, it's the spelling is the same, but it can mean wind, which is the wind, so it's a noun, or to wind, which is a verb. I'm very briefly going to talk you through this because it's not that clear. I'm going to try and move closer. But I will be putting an infographic up after the talk, so don't worry about writing any of this down. So, and you don't have to learn all these titles either. I want the child to be aware that they can come in. So these are in boxes because these are the two sort of main bodies, and then this fits into that and this fits into that. So homonym words. So they are sound words, okay? So if you see the word homonym, it's relating to sound. And homonyms can have the same sound, or they can have the same or different meaning, a spelling rather. So here we have the word fair, which is county fair, and we have the word fair, which means reasonable. And then we've got pear, which you eat, which is a fruit, and pair, which is a couple. So a homophone is actually a homonym. But what makes it a homophone, the attributes it has to have to become a homophone, is it has the same sound but different spelling. I couldn't actually fit spelling in there, so I just put spell. So pear and pear is a type of homonym, but we call it a homophone. I hope that makes sense. And very finally, to talk about our wind and wind, which I think that's a really tricky one as well, especially because kids are going to think it's wind immediately. I mean, it's a real kind of red herring. Wind and wind is a heteronym. A heteronym, I can't really see this, is a homograph. So let's talk about homograph words, and they're all to do with spelling. And you can think about spelling because you write. Graph means to write. So they can have the same or different sound. So confusing this, and I have to refer to this because I can never remember these. Or the same spelling. So lie and lie. So an untruth, or to lie down. Tear in your eye, and tear to rip. Okay, so those are homographs. So, but wind and wind fits into this category here. It's a heteronym, which is a type of homograph, and it has a different sound and the same spelling. So tear in the eye and tear as in rip. So it's like to wind, which is the verb, and wind, which is the noun. Hope, look, see, spatial awareness, I'm appalling, I'm rubbish. But I will put an infographic up for this, so don't worry about that. Whew, time for a drink, I think. So these are just some of the things that I did with my children. You don't have to do them. It's just me sharing my experiences. And like I've said before, I'm not a teacher. Just one thing I'd like to say before we wrap up. If anybody would like to see a free sample chapter of the book so that you can see if it's age appropriate to your child, or see whether it's a story you think your child might like, or just to see the layout, please PM me, so not in the comments here, PM me your email address, and then I can forward a link and you can download the sample chapter. I want to just say again another big thank you to Agnes, Agnes O'Brien. She's a human dynamo, never stops. Thanks Richard Gray. if my son turns out like you, I'll be happy. So I need to go and work on book 2 now, because I'm only about 1/10 of the way through it, and hopefully it'll be out for next year's 11 plus. And I'm going to do that with a gin and tonic in my hand, which I hope I have earned. And I hope I've not bored you and rambled on too much. And bye, and thanks again, Agnes, and thanks Facebook Live. Bye.